Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning into today's broadcast. It's the Thursday, July 16th, 2026 episode of the Marco Duray Show, the only show where the facts are facts and our truths thrive. Let's jump right out of the chute and into the fire with my first order of business today that you'll all enjoy very, very much. President Trump will be addressing the nation this evening. You heard me talk about this yesterday. And the rumblings have made their way through the press corps. And this is what Newsweek is starting to tell us what this may all be about. And I think this will probably be what it is. The speech is expected to focus on elections, voting machine security, and intelligence linked to the 2020 presidential election. Interesting. Now, I have a question for you. Why? Why right now? Why is this being presented to us in such a critical address right now? Amid when we have a war with Iran right now that is causing economic turmoil all across the world right now, especially inside the United States, creating supply chain issues, bottlenecking our oil supply right here in the United States. Why is this the main issue? Do Americans really care about the 2020 election right now? Is that their main concern? Something tells me otherwise. And most people will say, well, Trump came off a very big victory in 2024 and he won. Why didn't he win in 2020? What was the difference? We still had mail-in voting. Now, things were slightly different with COVID and what have you. But unless President Trump really brings the hard data, the hard evidence, the hard truths, if you will, and to substantiate it to the American people that, yes, this did happen. By the way, I'll argue with you, too. I'm sure there was cheating in 2020. I have no doubt about it. I have no doubt there was cheating in 2018, 2016, and going into previous elections from there. So what is the hard data? What can he actually present to the American people that we need the voter ID change in this country? Where is the reform going to be? What is the next step from here? Where do we go? Will the DOJ prosecute people that were involved in this massive fraud? These are the questions that I'm thinking in my head right now. But are most Americans going to buy it? That's the big question I have for you. Will Americans buy this tonight? Will they tune in? Will they be pleased that President Trump shared this information with us? But what happens next? Where do we go? Unless he does something, it's just words. And if that's the case, why the hell do I care? Most people realize there's cheating. I don't think anybody denies that in this country. There's been cheating for decades in this country. It didn't just happen in 2020. So how do we secure our elections? This is why President Trump wants to pass the SAVE Act. It's a good piece of legislation. I agree with it 100%. We need to have election integrity laws put in place. We need to have ID laws put in place. Every single check in place when we have elections. State, local, federal elections. Absolutely. I've said this time and time again to you. We need to have paper ballots brought back to us 100%. There's no reason why we can't do it this way. Everyone gets a copy of their ballot so they can see exactly how they voted for whatever amendment, whatever candidate, whatever judge, you name it, everything's on there. They get a copy of that. And then when they go home, they can look at the results. They can say, okay, I was voter 75 at my precinct number, whatever the hell it may be, in X county. Great. Here I am. Boom. There it is. There's the address. There's the address on my ballot. Let's take a look how voter 75 voted. Oh, good. Yes, I did vote for President Trump. Oh, I did vote for Steve Garvey. Oh, I did vote. On and on and on. You can see exactly how you voted. And if there's an irregularity, then you have a piece of evidence that you can say, hey, you're saying I voted for Kamala Harris? My guy? No, I didn't vote for Kamala Harris. No, I didn't vote for Adam Schiff. Good God. And then we have actual evidence. Then we can actually build a case. We build a prosecutable case. This is how it works. But right now, we have people going on about this and nothing is being done. There are no safeguards in place. By the way, I'm with them on this, by the way. We need to secure our elections. But unless he brings the goods tonight, I think most people will say this is just obfuscation from the war, from the status of the economy right now and how inflation is going up, how the price of homes are rising, the lack of immigration enforcement in this country in terms of deportation is not what President Trump promised us when he ran in 2024. People need to see progress. Trump was very good at this, by the way, in his first term. He was always very good with being showy and really kind of illustrating to us everything that he was doing. That's not really the case anymore. He can tell us a lot of things, but unless it's actually true, unless we can actually see the progress, most people don't care about this. So I'm not sure what this is intended to do this evening. We'll see exactly what he says. He may add some information about the Iran war. He may offer information about the economy. I don't know. It's always a big if with President Trump. But I do believe if he's going to sell this to the American people, he's got to name names. He's got to show evidence. He's got to have people saying, this is what took place. We now have conclusively decided this is substantial. This corroborates with my claims that, yes, the 2020 election was indeed stolen. And if it was stolen from him, I'm sure it was stolen from other people as well. Just thought I'd share that with you, too. But unless he does this, folks, I don't think this will serve the purpose he expects it to serve, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll see exactly what he says this evening. Will he make some bold statements, bold claims? Will he just simply tell us it was rigged and we've got to pass the SAVE Act? Well, again, he's been saying that to us for quite some time. Now, he did say something important. He said without free and fair elections, you don't have a country. He's absolutely right. But without a border, you don't have a country. Without politicians that are not bought and paid for, you don't have a country. So there's so many things in place. If we don't have our politicians following the Constitution, do we really have a country? All these are very important questions we have to ask ourselves. If who you're voting for is not going to follow the Constitution, if they're not going to adhere to their constituency in their suggested district, then what the hell's the point of it? We don't have anything. Now, sure, we have the illusion of a constitutional representative republic, but what do we actually get from it if our politicians do not answer to the American people? That's exactly what the founders wanted. They wanted the representation to make sure that they were heard by their people. That's how we have a healthy government. That's how it works. But if we don't have that, if they think they can just walk on water, they'll get elected again because you throw X number of dollars at them, or whomever the big donors get whatever the hell they want from their legislation or their lobbyists, which to me should be illegal. We don't have a country. Oh, we have people using the system to get what they want. Exactly. All this is put in place to take America down, though. Make no mistake about it. The open borders, obviously. Number one, if you don't have a border secured, you don't have a country. If you have people voting in these elections that shouldn't be voting, illegal aliens, which we know do, you don't really have a country because you have somebody negating your vote, the vote of the citizen. All these are major problems. So yes, I do believe in the SAVE Act. I think it should be passed. I do not think it should be put as a greater part of the National Defense Authorization Act. I thought that was a really stupid thing to do. But it did allow the Democrats to shoot it down really quickly, which I thought was fairly interesting. So the main reason I wanted to see that shot down was because of the intelligence sharing and gathering and, of course, information and what have you being merged with the state of Israel, which I think is a much greater form of treason, if you ask me. And obviously a grave concern, too, by the way, that most people are overlooking. Of course, you are because you listen to my show, so you get the firsthand information about that. This should be a message to everybody. You had 50 Republicans yesterday voting, or was it Tuesday? I forget what day it was. Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday. Excuse me. Tuesday. Voting to merge your Defense Department with that of the State of Israel's and their counterparts of the military. Can you believe this? And again, I said to you yesterday on the program, I said, can you imagine if, 1850, for instance, some dunce gets up there and says, well, we're going to share our intelligence with Britain. Isn't that going to be great? I mean, you couldn't throw the person out of Congress fast enough. But it never gets spoken about. No one's talking about this. No one's talking about Section 219, 224, 619. These are all, 622. These are all very, very important. Because does this mean we don't have any more say? Does this mean they have a say in what our military does? Does this mean we now have to provide them weaponry? How much is this going to cost us? This is preposterous. It's stupid. It's treasonous. Anyone who voted for it was voting for treason. And I cannot believe the Republican Party was doing this. Ladies and gentlemen, it's very, very shocking to me to have to tell you this, but this is exactly what it is. You don't merge your government with any other government. We are a sovereign nation. And everything that seems to be happening as of late, the erosion of our border, the erosion of our rights, the trampling of our privacy, which is granted to us in the Fourth Amendment to the Bill of Rights, in terms of these flock cameras that I've told you about, the idea, of course, that your phone records and listens to everything you say without your permission, these smart devices that listen in on what you're saying, folks. I mean, this is what they want. They want a 1984. They want a police state. They put these stupid traffic cameras up. Who voted for this, by the way? They should drive by them all the time in California. I said, what the hell's the point of this? Who voted for this? Nobody. We do not need to live like this, folks. But we need people to be involved. We need people to be aware. And again, that's why I always tell you, share my show, because I tell you all about it. I don't mince words. All right, so we'll see what President Trump says this evening. I imagine he will really push that the Congress votes to pass the NDAA so we can get the SAVE Act put in place. That's my estimation. He'll probably add in something about Iran, something about the economy, just to smooth things over, if you will. All right, let's move on. J.D. Vance, ladies and gentlemen, was speaking with Joe Rogan, and I thought this was fairly interesting because, again, he talked about some very important issues. One of them was, of course, election laws. I thought this was pretty interesting because that will be the topic discussed this evening. This is what Vance ended up telling Joe Rogan when questioned about voter ID laws. Take a listen to clip one.
Well, it's just very disheartening that you have to consider the fact that it's really possible that the elections get stolen. And the California one was a big one for me.
And why not just have mail-in, or why not just have voter ID?
Yeah. That's insane. Not only did they not have voter ID, you can't show your ID. You're not allowed to show your ID.
You can, in fact, be prosecuted if you try to force somebody to show their ID.
Seems like you want people to cheat.
Exactly.
And this is from the same people that were saying you have to have an ID that shows you've been vaccinated just 4 years ago to go to
grocery shopping or to go to a restaurant. Yeah, no, it's definitely, that's the part about it that I think makes most people of my political persuasion skeptical of what the Democrats are doing.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't want to cheat in the election, then just make everybody actually show an ID.
We know this, okay? It's nothing new. We know this. He's saying the quiet part out loud. Joe Rogan saying the quiet part out loud. Yes, we understand this is what took place with the L.A. mayoral race. You heard it on my show. The irregularities were too much for anybody to bear. There's no way you get a dump of ballots in the middle of the night, these mail-in ballots, what they're talking about, which I think should be completely legal. If you want to vote, you show up to the precinct, show your ID, you cast your vote, you get your carbon copy of how you voted back to you, and then you move on. That's the way it should be happening. This idea with mail-in ballots can just show up, as long as you date it for the election. You just have this wave of ballots. You don't know where the hell they're coming from. And by the way, I'll say in California as well, they allow ballot harvesting. So that means, for instance, if they went to a nursing home, they go to, a major corporation and collect ballots. I don't know what you could do. Go door to door and collect ballots. They've made that legal in California. Think about this. Let's say someone says, well, I'm not really going to be voting this election. I really don't want to. Well, I could take your ballot for you. Oh, really? Oh, okay, great. I could just we'll confiscate it for you and we'll make sure it gets, taken care of. Yeah. Well, that person could fill it out, can't they? That person can do whatever they want with it. They see how you fill it out, for instance. Right? The ballot harvester helps you with it. They say, oh, he's voting for Trump. Oh, voting for, Steve Garvey. Well, we don't want that in California. I'll be sure it gets to the precinct, my guy. Okay, good. And then all of a sudden, your ballot never gets there. But you're told it gets there, of course. And you have no way to check it because there's no way to go online and look at it. There's no way to see how your vote tallies. And this is why I'm saying The way I'm explaining it to you, this works. Not only do you have a copy of it that you were to hold on to for how many days after the election, but you actually can go in and see how your votes tally into your precinct. Oh, I was the 50th person that voted for President Trump out of 75. Really cool. Great. I can see how voter 76 voted. Okay, this person voted this way. Okay, this is how my district is voting. My precinct, my little area. This is how people are voting. Okay, this makes sense now. Now, of course, I'm not going to give your name or address, but you know your voter 75, so you know how to look. This is how people can check. This makes sense. This offers not only the safeguard to prevent people from voting that don't have the proper identification. Now, in California, you will have issues because the great state of California, under then Attorney General Kamala Harris, allowed illegal aliens to get, I think it was in 2014, 2015, whatever year it may have been, the California DMV to issue over 1 million IDs to illegal aliens. How did that work, by the way? How does that even work? How do you go in and say, hey, I want an ID, and they say, okay, fine. I just did that real ID earlier this year, and I went through so many loopholes just to try to get my ID to be a real ID. I had to show so many different things. But, I mean, can you imagine not being a citizen and then being granted an ID? So how does that work? Well, they make up rules. So they say, oh, well, this person doesn't have the proper means to show who they are. You still have to give them on the ID. There you go. And then they have a so-called valid ID. Now, I don't know if the real ID will take care of that then, when the people try to go in and they say, well, you have to show your birth certificate, you have to show a passport, you have to show X, Y, and Z, and they go, I can't do that. And they say, well, then you don't have an ID. What does that mean then? Where do we go from here then? Does that mean these people no longer have any proper means of identification? Can they still vote? What will happen then? What will Gavin Newsom and his cronies do in Sacramento to make sure these people continue to vote? Gavin Newsom, and by the way, they're referring to California, of course, so a state I know very well. In California, they actually passed a Senate bill, I believe it was 1174, if I'm not mistaken. It was done by David Min, who was a piece of garbage communist. Yep, from Orange County, if you can believe that. Somehow they voted for this schmuck in Orange County. Anyways, he gets a bill in line, passed through the legislation that makes it illegal for any precinct of any city to make sure that you show an ID. So they made it illegal for any precinct to say, let me see your ID. That's what Huntington Beach tried to do. And Dave Min said, no, you can't do that. You can't ask for an ID. How dare you? This is part of the stupidity. This is how they win. And you add in the electronic machines that we know could be hacked into. You've heard me talk about this time and time again. Anything that can be put online can be hacked, folks. Anything that be plugged into with a memory card in it can be hacked. It's all by design. It's all done by computer programmers. They've testified to Congress. You've heard me play various people talking about this. It can be done. So don't just think because it's electronic that there's no way there could be any flaws in the system or that they could be hacked. It's definitely possible. So while he's talking about this, and I think he's just, heating things up for Trump probably tonight. This was the other day he spoke about this. He brings up a good point, though. They're putting laws in place to make it more difficult for people to show and prove who they are. And if we're doing that, that means fraud is possible. Because if somebody shouldn't be voting and I'm voting as a citizen, that person, if they're voting against whatever I'm voting for, that changes, obviously, the makeup of my state, who's elected to go to Congress, for instance, or be the mayor, or be on the board of supervisors, or whatever it may be, a judgeship. This changes the way in which your state runs. This is a very big problem. And if that's happening, if we're sending the people to D.C., to your state houses, to the governor's mansion that don't belong there, or the city council, or whatever it may be, and they're making now this legislation that goes against our values of this country, that constantly violate the Constitution, which we know happens all the time, this is a very big problem. And J.D. Vance and Joe Rogan are absolutely right to discuss this. They did talk about something else that was very interesting, though, I thought. This comes out of the New York Post. It said Vice President J.D. Vance asserted in a bombshell interview with Joe Rogan that some in the Israeli government want to derail U.S. negotiations with Iran to keep the war going indefinitely. And he acknowledged that the Trump administration really screwed up with the release of the Epstein files. Well, thank you, JD. I appreciate you on that one. I've been saying that for God knows. How long have I been saying that for, folks? At least several months, at least. At least since December of this year, I was talking about how ridiculous this lack of transparency is and how these people go scot-free with committing crimes against women and children. Anyways, back to the other issue here. Israel wants to thwart this memorandum of understanding. No shock. They want the war to go on. Why do they want the war to go on? Because Iran is the last nation in that region that offers any sort of real opposition to the state of Israel. That's the truth of it, folks. It has nothing to do with the way Iran runs their government or the way they treat their people. Most of it's a bunch of nonsense anyway, what you hear. By the way, I'm not saying the Iranian government is perfect. Far from it. Far from it. But this idea that, again, that it's the number one state sponsor of terrorism, they're going to come to the U.S., they're going to come to Israel and start killing everybody. Folks, when you have a memorandum of understanding from a country, they wrote this, they wrote most of it, right? Because they're the ones that are winning this conflict right now, this war with us. And the first line says, all fighting on all fronts stops, including in Lebanon. Does that sound like something a death cult state or the number one state sponsor of terrorism would actually sign into law? Do you think you can get ISIS to sign something like that? Or the Taliban? Or the Hayat Tahrir Hashem, which the now new president of Syria was a part of? Or Al-Qaeda? Or any of these other factions, these jihadist Muslim groups that are Sunni Muslim groups, not Shia Muslim groups like the Iranians are, and most of the Iraqis as well. Ask yourself that question. Would they really sign off to an end to this conflict, or would they actually just continue to be engaged in war with you? And if they're engaged in all this war, why has Iran, this entire time of their almost 50 years in power of this Islamic regime, why have they not invaded any other countries, by the way? All these things come to mind, folks, when we're thinking about this, of course. But it doesn't seem to hold any water. If they're the number one state sponsor of terrorism, why would they call for an end to the conflict? Wouldn't they continue on with their jihad? And by the way, there are jihadist Muslims out there. The Iranians, though, however, are not that. Just thought I'd be clear with you on that one. They are not Sunni Muslims, which, again, 80%. The CIA found this out. Since 2000, I think the report came out in 2025. They cultivated all this information. They got a hold of it. They collected it. They analyzed it. And they found that over 80% of all the terrorism in the world, all the real actual terrorism, violence to coerce political discourse and outcomes, all of that, over 80% of it comes from these Sunni Muslim Islamist groups. Again, Taliban, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, all these different factions a part of it. This is real terrorism. Iran's not even on the top of that list or even close to the top. So how can we continue to hear this time and time again, that Iran is the number one state sponsor of terrorism, and this is why we're in this war? If they get a nuclear weapon, then they're going to attack us. Again, where is the evidence for that? I'm a reasonable guy. Where's the evidence? Nobody seems to be able to find it. I don't know, folks. I go by facts. I go by what's happening. I go by how countries are conducting themselves. Where is the nuclear weapon? Where is it? Can somebody tell me? And by the way, we hear this back and forth with the fact that we have since disarmed their nuclear capabilities, right? We said we bombed those 3 different sites, Fordow, Natanz, Isfahan. If we bomb these sites that are holding this enriched uranium necessary to create nuclear weapons, and everything is buried underground and they have no access to get to it, how could they possibly have been building a bomb earlier this year if we did it last June? That doesn't make any sense. So either we didn't hit these sites properly, or they still kept the enriched uranium when we bombed these empty facilities. I don't know which one it is. But even then, you had Tulsi Gabbard going to Congress saying exactly that. The Iranians were not developing a nuclear weapon. They don't have any intelligence to suggest that. The Iranians issued 2 fatwas. Almost, 23 years ago, back in 2003. Ali Khamenei came out with 2 fatwas saying this is against our religion to create a weapon that could destroy life like this. Again, you don't have to take my word for it, folks. This is what he said. But yeah, time and time again, we hear the same thing coming from Israeli intelligence, that Iran is a couple months away, a couple weeks away. They're this close. They're almost at 90% enriched uranium. Everything else. They're supposed to be the number one state sponsor of terrorism, yet they engaged themselves in talks with the Obama administration to create the JCPOA that was backed by other Islamic nations to stop them from developing a nuclear weapon. Does that make sense to anybody listening? If your goal is terrorism, and if your goal is to destroy the West, as they keep saying, and Israel, why would you sign that? Why would you allow in IAEA inspectors into your country to check your nuclear sites to ensure that you're not developing a nuclear weapon? Why would you only enrich to 3.76% uranium? You're not going to be able to develop a nuclear weapon with that. You'll hear people in the Trump administration say, well, the Iranians were lying. Yes, they were, but where's the evidence? Go ahead. Show me it. Where's the evidence they're doing this? Now, I think our actions right now are actually pushing us to allow the Iranians to say, you know what? We signed with them. We did the JCPOA. We issued fatwas. We've never attacked them. We were going to meet with them last June. We were going to meet with them early. We met with them in early February. We're meeting with them again. And now, with this memorandum of understanding, the United States again defied what they said they were going to do. There is no memorandum of understanding. It's dead. This put forth by J.D. Vance, by the way, is now dead. Absolutely. 100%. There is no understanding. There is no negotiation. And at some point, I think the Iranians will understand. They'll wise up to the fact that President Trump is not interested in any type of negotiation whatsoever. That he was using this time since he signed this in early June, this memorandum of understanding, simply to buy more time to get more weapons to where they needed to be. That's what it was all about. And even J.D. Vance later said this. This is just a pause. That's what a ceasefire is. All it is simply a pause. It's not a stop to the conflict. That's why when Putin was brought forth with the idea of having a ceasefire with Ukraine, he said no. Because a ceasefire is only a pause. If we're going to stop this, we're going to stop this with a peace treaty. That's what he said. Once Zelensky relinquishes his presidency and they surrender and they give us the land that we are acquiring that has ethnic Russians that you've been slaughtering, they never tell you that part, do they, folks? So every time you hear a ceasefire, just understand it just means a pause in the fighting. We're in a ceasefire for the next 6 days. Okay, it's just a pause. Look how quickly that upended itself. And by the way, the United States were the ones that defied the treaty first. The understanding, if you will. We had no right going in and escorting ships through the Omani sector of the Strait of Hormuz. We had no right to do that. Why did we do that? We signed on it. Trump signed it. It says nothing about 0.5, the United States escorting ships through the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranians opened up to anybody that went through the proper arrangements to work with them. They did that. They allowed that. Ships were beginning to flow yet again. Now it's completely shut again. But the ships that got through were not coming to the West or to the United States. That's a big problem in and of itself. We need this corridor opened up. It has to be open. And right now it's closed yet again. And again, if Israel has this position that they want us to be forever in a war with Iran, which again, this could really turn into. Again, I don't know how long Trump plans to do this. If he just wants to have a perpetual war with the state of Iran, well, then we struggle as a nation. There is no growth of the United States from here on out. We'll be spending so much money on these endless wars, folks. And I know they're telling you right now, oh, it's only been a couple months, Jerez. What are you so worried about? We're winning. Haven't you heard about this? Trump gets up there every night on the soapbox and says, hey, we're winning. There's no military. We're going to open up the strait. We heard this before. How many times have we heard this? We heard, 60 times that we've won this conflict? If we won the conflict, why are we restarting the war then? What's going on with that? Why are the Iranians dictating the terms for the understanding? What's happening with all this? And if we can get in there and open up the Strait of Hormuz, why haven't we yet? Well, I ask these questions. They seldom ever get really answered. But let's think, folks. That's what I want you to do in this show. I want you to think. I want you to think about what's going on around you. If the U.S. is winning, Why then is the Strait of Hormuz still controlled by the Iranians? Why had they shut it? Why do we still have morons like Keith Kellogg now that continue to go online, I'm not online, but on television, collecting whatever sum of money they get for spewing their nonsense, right? And saying some of the most dumbest things possible. This is the same guy that was encouraging the United States to go in and to take Kark Island. What purpose would that be? Anyways, here he was yesterday. I believe he was on with Stuart Varney talking about how we need to take the Strait of Hormuz. This is in our resolve to do so for our grandchildren. Take a listen.
We do have the military capacity to keep the strait open. We've proven that before, and they can do that. Now, the second question you have, do we have the will to do it? No, the President Trump has the will to do so. This is the question we have to the American people. You have got to stand by the president. This is a critical junction. You have a lot of critics out there saying, well, it's a war of choice, we shouldn't be doing it. Baloney. It's a war for Americans' grandchildren and children as well. And I've got no problem with that, and they shouldn't either. And if they get charged a fee for it, so be it.
Well, of course he doesn't have a problem with it. He's not going to fight in it. What the hell is he going to do? We've done it before. I'm sorry, folks. Maybe I need a refresher on this. When the hell did we keep the Strait of Hormuz open up militarily? Now, we got the Iranians to open up. That's true. With this memorandum of understanding. Sure. But we ourselves didn't open it up. In fact, when we sent ships to that region, originally, they ended up having to turn around. Make that make any sense, folks? Oh, goodness. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't add up. There's no water to it. It's just a bunch of words. And people on the right here, they like, oh, yes, we're winning. We're going to win. We're going to have this conflict end. Yes, we're going to be the victors of this. We're finally going to win a war since World War II. By the way, I don't say that to hate on our military. That's just the facts, folks. That's just the facts. We have not won a single conflict since World War II. Any big major war. We haven't won anything. And yet here we are engrossed in this now for another country. J.D. Vance tells you straight up, folks. He said, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that there have been people within Israel's government who are trying to, actually shift us away from negotiations because they want us to continue the military campaign. Then why are we dealing with them? Why are we not cutting ties? This is not in the U.S.'s best interest. We know this because it's affecting our own economy. It's affecting our own GDP. We're wasting God knows how much money on this every single day to keep ships in the region, to keep troops in the region, putting them in harm's way. Why would we do this? Now, if there was a valid reason for this war, folks, if we had Iranian warships off our coast, and they were threatening to shoot missiles into the United States and kill people, okay, you got me on that one. I'm with you on that one. We need to defend our country. Absolutely. But if we're not doing that, if we're going 6,000 miles away to be in that region, what is the purpose of it? What good does that do to the American people? I've yet to hear a valid response to that. Just thought I'd share that with you. So I thought that was good he brought all this up. Of course, that's obviously the Israelis are the ones that are really pushing us into this conflict further and further. He's absolutely right about this. They want this conflict. And it makes J.D. Vance look extremely weak now. J.D. Vance was the one that proposed this. He's the one that negotiated this. He should have said to us that, yes, while he was in these negotiations in Islamabad, he was actually getting calls to President Trump about what to do, and even to Netanyahu. Why is J.D. Vance calling Netanyahu, at least once, we know of? Ask yourself that question. I think you'll find the answer very appalling, like I do. Midway through the nearly 3-hour-long interview with Rogan, he asked Vance about the Trump administration's resistance to releasing the government files related to the notorious sex criminal Jeffrey Epstein. Well, Todd Blanche got an earful about this, too, during his hearing yesterday as well, about how he dropped the ball on that, which I believe he did as well. Now, the vice president acknowledged the missteps, but insisted there was no cover-up. Well, okay, then let's think about this. There was no cover-up. Then why are we getting redacted information? Who are you trying to protect? You're not trying to protect the victims. In fact, they screwed up with that. They had a bunch of the victims' names released at some point, releasing these documents. Obviously, folks, anyone that's taken a little bit of time to read through some of these files, again, there's millions of pages of them, but anyone that's gone through to look and say, okay, someone's writing this to Jeffrey Epstein about human sacrifice? So, I want you to kill X, Y, and Z? Who is this writing to you? And I said this on the show yesterday. Would somebody write that to you? I want to go kill so-and-so. We should kill so-and-so. I had a good time at the party with 3-year-old. I mean, would somebody write that to you? Unless they were also involved in this. And if these people know about this, why wouldn't they go to the police if they're not involved in it? That's another thing. Any decent person hearing this ungodly information that this is taking place would obviously go to the authorities. So that begs the question then. Why would these people write this to Jeffrey Epstein? Why would they talk about these certain things? Killing, human sacrifice, rape, trafficking, bringing children to the United States. I mean, there's a whole long list of these nefarious acts, folks, that are disgusting. It's appalling. No civilized human being acts like this. But this idea that he acted on his own, the fact that he was in it with himself and Ghislaine Maxwell, is a bunch of nonsense. Nobody would write that to somebody unless they were also involved in it. And we have the documentation to see this. Now, we have the names etched out, by and large. But the question is then, why? There is no cover-up. Why do we still have 3 million pages that have yet to be released? Why are you redacting certain people's names? Let's hear it. Who are they? And have you looked into any of their activity that could corroborate that they've been involved in any of these crimes that were committed? We know there's 1,200 victims that we know of. Only about 200 are left living today. Why hasn't the DOJ, why hasn't this administration that's supposed to be uber transparent given us any real details about this? This idea that he's dead, that it doesn't really matter, the people that are telling you to forget about it, they can all go to hell. This has ruined so many people's lives. Not just the victims, their families as well. You want us just to turn our back on this and pretend like it didn't happen? Again, folks, I told you yesterday, the rule of law applies to everyone. That's why we have a rule of law. There is nobody in this country, politician, businessman, immigrant, citizen, alike, that are different under the rule of law. We are all the same. There is no king or queen or aristocracy that is above all this, and they get to do whatever the hell they want. Well, it seems that way, doesn't it? If you have people writing about, again, if I was writing this to somebody and the FBI got a hold of it, you would believe, you would hope, I would be arrested if I'm talking about murder or any of these other disgusting things. It doesn't add up. We should demand justice for this. And the idea that, again, he's kind of going through this, we actually screwed up some of the comms of the Epstein files. Yeah, all right. Come on. But I don't think the reason we screwed up the comms is because we were trying to hide something. No, JD. No, you weren't hiding anything. Then how come we haven't seen any arrest? He gave us these stupid binders. Remember that? They had all the conservative ink schmucks out there. All the people I cannot stand, by the way. These people are grifters. These people just simply parrot whatever, the establishment wants them to parrot, of course. They had the Epstein files, phase 1. Right? They gave it to a group of so-called conservatives. I call them grifters. That's all they are. They'll say whatever the hell they have to say to get their money. That's all it is, folks. Hate to tell it to you like that, but that's who those people are. Anyone who is holding one of those binders cannot be trusted. Believe me when I tell you that. If they'll lie about that, they'll lie about anything. Holding up these stupid binders, this is transparency, contained no new information. Every single thing was redacted in it. It's unbelievable. But Pam Bondi, same thing. I got the book right on my desk right now. I'm looking at it. I'm going to look at it right now. Oh, really? You got the book? Oh, yes. Oh, I didn't mean I had the book. I was just speaking in generals, of course. Thank God she's gone. Look at her. What a mess she was. Should have had Ken Paxton. I got to be honest with you. I would have rather have had Ken Paxton as the Attorney General. I think he would have gotten some things done. Absolutely. Now he's running for Senate. We'll see how he does there. But I think he really, really would have done a good job with this. He wouldn't have dropped the ball like Pam Bondi. Good old Pam Blondie. Look, where is she now? Nobody knows. Who cares? Anyways, So I thought that was really unique that he was openly talking about this, especially Israel's involvement with stymieing these negotiations, which they absolutely are. But we need to get information about this. There needs to be justice, of course, for the survivors and for the victims that have since deceased. There needs to be justice, folks, because crimes like this cannot go without any type of consequence. There has to be consequence. Otherwise, we don't have a rule of law. And that begs the question, do we even have a nation if we don't have borders? Or if we have politicians who feel they're above the law? Or they will do anything for the highest bidder. That's not how a functioning constitutional republic is supposed to function, folks. It's supposed to work for everybody, not just for some people or themselves, of which they get very, very wealthy on. All right. I do want to talk about another important issue, obviously, ladies and gentlemen, referring to the threats of Iran, certainly with the infrastructure in the Persian Gulf nations now as the U.S. continues the strikes. This comes out of the Washington Times. And I actually got some very big information I want to share with you. No one else is going to be talking about this today, folks, so you'll be hearing some really privy information. But the Iranians have warned the United States on Thursday that it would reduce the Persian Gulf region buildings to rubble if the U.S. forces attack its domestic infrastructure. That would be their bridges, their roads, the power plants, you name it. Anything required for civilian infrastructure. The Persian Gulf said that they will then reduce the, I guess they're going to start attacking beyond the bases, which they've likely decimated, the 10 or so sites in the region. Isn't that interesting, though, when you think about that? The Iranians have roughly, 10 or so different targets they have to just continue to hit time and time again, and the United States is just trying to figure out what they can hit to get the Iranians to come to the table. Doesn't make any sense, of course. But this idea that we'll bomb them into submission now, again, really carries no water. Yet a spokesperson for the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps said that Iran will target all the infrastructure still standing in the region if the U.S. attacks Iran's sites. Can you imagine? Can you imagine being Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, sitting there going, everything in our country is going to start getting hit now if the U.S. continues these attacks on Iran that again, are not going to coerce them to stop this conflict. And now our countries are going to be left in ruins as a result of this? Yet Trump said the other day that these countries will invest, several billions of dollars in the United States? It's amazing, folks. Again, if you follow through with any logic, you have to ask yourself the question, would they invest in the United States after all this is happening to their countries, which they'll have to reinvest in, and reconstruction will definitely have to take place? And a lot of these oil wells and oil fields and liquefied natural gas fields that have been offline for some time are going to take months, if not years, to get back up and running. I told you before, the Las Rafan liquefied natural gas refinery went up in flames when they restarted it. That's what happens when they're offline for an extended period of time, like several months. And imagine the damage, and imagine again, you have to rebuild and refurbish everything that's been destroyed and make sure it's up and running so it doesn't happen again. The cost for that for these countries. But at the same time, they are aiding and abetting the United States to allow their bases to be there in the region so that they can further attack the Iranians. And so they're held culpable for what's happening. Now, they said, of course, that they would target all this infrastructure of these Gulf Arab states. They also warned the U.S. not to interfere in the Strait of Hormuz. They said that this is Iran's invincible red line. So I would imagine, maybe Keith Kellogg didn't get the message, but if we try to go in and open that up militarily with ships, I would assume our ships would get hit. Let's pray to God that doesn't happen. And that's why, of course, our naval blockade is so far off the coast, sitting in the Arabian Sea, because we realize that, yes, the Iranians will hit these ships and likely sink them if they try to go in and do this. So that's a problem. I think, folks, this isn't going in the right direction. It's going in the wrong direction. Iran has laid their red lines out. Now what will the United States do? Will they continue on with this? Will we hear from President Trump that they want to make a deal again? Apparently they attack us and then say they want to make a deal. Okay, well, nobody really believes that. Nobody believes that. And ladies and gentlemen, I tell you this, I tell you very, very surely that the Iranians are no longer playing around. U.S. CENTCOM can say they struck several sites late Wednesday. I have no doubt about that. They've targeted Bandar Abbas on the coast. They've targeted Chabahar, another port city as well in southern Iran. We know this. I'm not denying any of this, but it's not going to stop their resolve. If there was any ever doubt that the Iranian people are behind their governments, well, now you got it. That number is shrinking as time goes on. Because now they're seeing the will of the United States, what they're doing with the sanctions. By the way, we didn't give them any of the money back for reconstruction or the sanctions, which again was part of the Memorandum of Understanding. So who is not holding up their end of the bargain? The Iranians opened up the Strait of Hormuz. They did. They said, you will coordinate with us. You'll go through the Iranian side, and that's why we're not going to charge tolls, but you have to follow through with what we're telling you to do. In other words, they're getting people in line for what's going to take place after those 60 days. Then we get Donald Trump coming in and saying we're going to charge a 20% toll. How we're going to do that, again, is beyond me. I thought it was a international waterway. Well, actually, no, it's not. It's a territorial waterway run by the Iranians, and of course, on the other side of the strait, that would be the Omanis. So there you go. Now, here's some big news. I'm going to share this with you, folks. This is groundbreaking news. You're not going to hear this from anyone else today, so listen up, share the show, especially this part. This is telling me that the Iranians probably have had enough of the United States and Donald Trump. Just thought I'd share this with you. It says here that the Iranian parliament, they met on Tuesday, and they voted on 2 different resolutions. The first one was demanding that the government accelerate nuclear capabilities. Now, it was not specifically specified as to what this means. It could just mean their civilian nuclear program, or it could mean nuclear weapons. Very possible. The problem is, a lot of analysts, geopolitical analysts, believe that it could mean the deployment of a nuclear weapon on Iranian soil to demonstrate that they have the weapon and that they could potentially use it. That would be a big game changer. I think everyone would agree with me on that one. They went on to say, though, that this will limit the cooperation between Iran and the IAEA. This is part of this resolution. So any future inspections by the IAEA, that'd be the International Atomic Energy Association, they must be approved by the Supreme National Security Council inside of Iran. The parliament even took the time to condemn the IAEA's chief, Rafael Grossi, for not rebuking Israel's and the United States attacks last June, which they believe encourages more strikes on the country itself. You even had Foreign Minister Arachi said that Iran is now committed to the Non-Proliferation Treaty still. However, this is the part you need to listen to. It will be under much limitations moving forward. So what does that mean? Now, the word I've been hearing from people that are on the inside have said that Iran plans to leave the Non-Proliferation Treaty overall. They want to rescind their membership in that, and certainly adhering to any of the provisions of what they have signed on to. Imagine that, too, by the way. You have the Iranians, who are this number one state sponsor of terrorism. They issue 2 fatwas saying they're not going to build a nuclear weapon. They sign on to the Non-Proliferation Treaty, which, again, would stop them from developing nuclear weapons. They're not going to do it. They sign on the JCPOA saying, hey, we're not going to do it. And then, of course, we go and attack them because of nuclear weapons. It's amazing, folks. I wouldn't doubt at this point if Iran would really take a look at this and say, this will secure us, certainly. It'll be a security guarantee. It'll show the United States. It'll show Israel. It'll show the West. Stop interfering in our country. Stop with the sanctions. Stop with the arming the Kurds and the Baluchis and the Mujahideen al-Khalq. Stop doing this. Leave our country. This is our sovereign nation. This is what the Iranians want. This is what they've been saying the whole time. They're taking the North Korea approach right now, is what I'm trying to explain to you. So I wouldn't doubt it if Mojtaba Khamenei, the new supreme leader, would really tell them, you know what, we're going to go forth with this now. The United States cannot be dealt with. They can't adhere to documents we signed. They don't hold to their word. Twice now. Twice. We committed perfidy, which is illegal under international law, that we were in good faith with these communications with them, that we're meeting with them in good faith, and then both times we decided to bomb them. June of last year, and of course on February the 28th of this year. So I think they're done with this, coming to the table, going back and forth. We know that Qatar and Pakistan are now trying to get them back into negotiations. Whether or not that works, I doubt it. Could happen, but I doubt it. And never forget, folks, what did I tell you? About a month ago or so, I said, here's what is going to happen at some point. I said, Iran will leave all negotiations with the United States. That could happen right now. But the next line of attack would be they will then leave the non-proliferation treaty. They will certainly say, we're out. We're out. We're on our own now. And when that happens, that means it's only a matter of time, likely, that they show the world that, yes, we can build a nuclear weapon, and yes, we now have one. Take a look at this demonstration we have. That's all very possible. We are pushing the Iranians into this position. We're not pushing them away from it. I'll just leave it to you as that for that very big, important point. You had the entirety, a unanimous vote to push Iran into this position. So just be aware of this, folks. When you're talking about deterring Iran from having a nuclear weapon, we're pushing them further to it. The other thing the parliament also voted on unanimously was to remove hardline critics from the security posts. This would be Mahmoud Nabarian and Ibrahim Rezai from these senior positions. These are people that are critical of the U.S. negotiations to try to sway the dynamic moving forward for diplomacy. So they removed these people, which I thought was interesting given their previous stance. I think Iran wants to go the negotiated route with the United States. I don't think they want to do this. But I think what we're demonstrating is they have to do this. And if they have to do this, then of course you'll see issues with what's going on. And of course, they will develop that nuclear weapon at some point or procure that from any number of these BRICS countries. Pakistan has one. India has one. China has them. Russia has them. It wouldn't be difficult for them to get their hands on it or the technology or the patents to do so. They would be very, very heavily involved in this. And by the way, Russia sees the crucial point of Iran being in the Persian Gulf. China sees this. Certainly India and Pakistan see the worth in this. So it wouldn't be too far-fetched that they would be able to obtain a weapon right now and say, we've got this. We've got several in our arsenal right now. And if further provoked, we will continue consideration to use it. That's not too far-fetched now, folks, from where we were. But can you imagine? Last June, President Trump had a great deal worked out with the Iranians. Enrichment to 3.75%. No nuclear weapons. U.S. weapons inspectors coming in to ensure they're not developing a nuclear weapon. A great, great plan. A great, great position to take. And we let that all go. We let Israel go in and bomb. It's amazing, folks, that Trump blew all this up. And now he's trying to blow up the Middle East, which is another major problem, folks. All right, let's also talk about Jordan. Jordan now is getting hit by the Iranians. Yep. Now we're seeing the strikes on the Muwafiq Salti Air Base and the El Azraq Air Base. These are major hubs for the United States air power inside of the Middle East. We know that a lot of the Iranian warheads still hit the base, despite some of them also being intercepted, of course. But really it's showing that Iran's might and ability to reach U.S. infrastructure over really 1,000 kilometers away is still possible. So nothing is out of the ordinary for what the Iranians can hit. But this is what's going on now, folks. They're starting to really expand their scope of where they're hitting. And it's a major, major problem. And folks, this comes from the World Israel News. This is the other part of the equation I think is going to be detrimental, especially in economical terms. Iran has now instructed the Houthi rebels in Yemen to prepare to disrupt shipping through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait if the U.S. continues to attack Iranian power infrastructure. This is going to be their next piece of leverage. This is the next chip they hold on to. Okay, you're going to continue to bomb us? Well, we'll also strike your Gulf Arab allies. We'll continue to strike buildings inside of Saudi Arabia or Kuwait or Bahrain or the UAE. Doesn't matter. We'll hit it all. We'll go for it. If this is what you decide to do, if you hit these power infrastructure, energy infrastructure, civilian targets, bridges. Okay, it's on then. And ladies and gentlemen, the Iranians have been pretty much to their word on this, I'd have to say. That if they said they're going to go bomb something, they probably will reiterate and bomb something. They've been very, very on it with all that. Now, the sources cited in the report that they did not say precisely when or how the message was delivered, but Iran's foreign minister and a Houthi spokesperson did not immediately respond to requests for comment. But again, folks, if they're saying this, again, the Houthis have the ability to close down the straits. This is between the Gulf of Aden, which is just to the south of the Arabian Peninsula. And, of course, it would shut down all traffic coming through the Red Sea to go out towards the Persian Gulf, towards, obviously, around Africa, to the Arabian Sea, to get to Asia. This is another crucial waterway. And if that gets shut down, then the Saudis have no way to really move, at least via sea, their oil. So now their oil supply is going to be sitting where it is. This is also shutting down all access from the Suez Canal. That means the Egyptians will not be able to charge tolls for ships to get through, coming from the Mediterranean. So it's going to be devastating. And this is, again, it's going to slow down commerce on the global scale. I don't know how President Trump can look at this and say, this is a good position. This is good. Let's keep pushing this. Let's see what they actually will do. Well, then, hey, Yemen shuts it down and Yemen still continues to bomb inside Saudi Arabia. You have the Iranians now will say they will bomb inside of Saudi Arabia too. They'll bomb inside of Jordan. If Jordan's going to continue to host the United States in these air bases. It's just the way things are going to work. So isn't it interesting? We got in this conflict because of Israel. Again, just don't take my word for it. Listen to Marco Rubio. Listen to Peter Doocy. Listen to what they've said. They've outlined very clearly. Israel was going in first. We decided not to wait, not to get hit first, so we decided to go in after them. This is what we are involved in now, folks. We're letting Israel dictate everything inside of the Middle East in terms of foreign policy. At least that's what it looks like to me. I try to have a reasonable outlook for that, but that's exactly what they're telling us. Oh, and by the way, folks, we have a few minutes remaining in the program. I do want to talk to you quickly about the United States now imposing a 25% tariff on Brazilian goods next Wednesday. Yep. Just 2 days before the temporary global 10% duty is set to expire. President Trump now is going to be using Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974. This is his crutch to, I guess, put more tariffs on foreign countries. They're suggesting that, well, certainly in Section 301, they want a U.S. trade representative to investigate, to take action against any foreign trade practices that are unfair, discriminatory, or restrict U.S. commerce. So what they're suggesting now is that the Brazilians have been unreasonable in terms of their trading with the United States, which I find very interesting, saying that they're discriminating against U.S. companies, that they're restricting market access, providing unfair advantages to domestic or preferred foreign partners, and they're trying to harm U.S. exports and economic output, which, again, is interesting to me because we've continued to run a cumulative $424.5 billion goods and services surplus with Brazil over the last 15 years. Just the last year, we've got a $14.4 billion surplus with them, which doubled from the previous year. So explain to me how this is more unfair of what what Brazil is doing. It doesn't seem to really make any sense to me. But again, folks, I just look at things objectively. So now in terms of economic downfall, we're going to now start slapping on a larger tariff now on all Brazilian goods. Oh, that's good. So we can have, highly quality beef, orange juice, aircraft parts, you name it, energy products that are now going to come to the United States at a higher price that we, the consumers, have to pay. Try to make sense of all that, folks. All right, folks, thank you for being here today. I appreciate it so much. I'll have the coverage regarding President Trump's address to the nation this evening on tomorrow's show. You don't want to miss it. Make sure you're staying prepped. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you back here, as always, for more groundbreaking news. I got to go. Stay busy. Be good. God bless.